Welcome back to Hot Takes and Deep Dives. This is Jess, and I am with the one, the only, Mr. Everything Iconic himself. It's Danny Pellegrino.
Jess, I'm so happy to be chatting with you. I know we were talking offline, but I'm such a huge fan of your show. I just recently was listening to your Jackie Warner interview, which you were such a pro, and I think it was just an amazing interview, especially for people who love like the early days of Bravo. I thought it was like, I was addicted to it. I was like listening in I had my headphones in while my boyfriend was watching, I don't know, he was watching a movie or something. And I was just like salivating over the interview. It was just so well done and fantastic. So.
Thank you. I mean, that, I have to say, like, I had been wanting to interview her since like the day, like that was like a dream guest. Like I've, been a fan of hers and followed her career, and to finally be able to, like, it took a while, but then when it actually happened, she was so open and so
open, but it was juicy. It was like just such an entertaining interview. And I think all of us who watched those early years of Bravo, it's like, I wondered what was going on with her and where she was and what she was doing. And I'm from Ohio too. And that's where she is right now.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So I found it all so fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Was that surprising to you to hear that she left LA and moved home to Ohio?
Jess, I got to tell you something. Every moment of that interview was surprising to me. I encourage anyone, if they have not listened to it, to go back and listen. I was like telling people, and I don't normally like post everywhere online, like to listen to a podcast, but I was like, I loved it so much. I was like in Facebook groups and on Instagram and stuff, like telling people, you got to go listen to this.
I can't. Does your mom, Linda Pellegrino, still live in Ohio?
She does. Yeah. My parents and I have two older brothers, and they have families. They all live like within a street of each other. So they're all in the same neighborhood, and I'm like the black sheep.
I think you need to have your mom set up a workout consultation with Jackie. I think that I can facilitate this. But how amazing if you should do this for your show. Get your mom to work out with Jackie. I mean, if they're in the same relative within an hour or two of each other, you have to have her do a remote report.
Well, I'm actually, yes, I'd love that. I would love to send Linda to Jackie Warner, although I don't know if Linda could really handle Jackie. Like, I feel like that'd be tough. But yeah, it was also fascinating too, because I worked on a book project with Bob Harper, who she had mentioned in the interview. And I'm so fascinated by that it was a weird time where like trainers were sort of becoming famous, like 20 years ago, or I don't even know when that was.
It wasn't 20 years ago. It was like 8 years ago, 10 years ago.
Jess, I got news for you. It was like 20 years ago. Spoiler alert. We're in 2020 now. I feel like, when did The Biggest Loser start? That started.
You're right. The Biggest Loser was, 2004, 2006, like somewhere in there.
And also, I loved Jackie's workout show on Bravo. I was like obsessed with that. Was one of the first times I remember seeing like an open lesbian on television, and she was such a successful and strong and funny, and there were so many different dimensions to that show. And I know she had said on your show like she didn't like the way that it sort of turned out. I think the second season, or I don't really quite remember, but. Mm-hmm. I just remember being a young man in Ohio watching shows like that and seeing a gay person on TV, and it was just revolutionary to me.
Lately, I've been thinking about what makes gay pop culture. I find myself so entrenched in quote unquote gay pop culture, but then like I was thinking about it, and it's just like, is it all gay? Like, is pop culture inherently gay? The Housewives is like the gayest show on television.
There's just obviously whoever's listening to this podcast better strap in, because we're just going to be talking about all this stuff. We have a lot to get off our chests.
So I guess actually let's start with Bravo. I mean, what were the early Bravo shows how did you get hooked into Bravo, the actual network?
I remember Kathy Griffin's My Life on the D-List was like my favorite thing on television. Like, and it didn't get huge ratings. And I remember even some of my friends, like the cool friends, or the ones that I was really close with, it's like they loved it too. But you would go to school, or I would be in high school and college and talking about these shows, and it wasn't like the other people were liking it, but like the
Right.
cool ones, or the ones that I was attracted to, or I should say.
Remember Kathy had, on the first season of My Life on the D-List, she had her two gay best friends, Dennis, and I want to say the other guy's name was Tony. Do you remember those guys?
I remember them. Yeah.
And they were writers, you know, in LA. And I think after that first season, I think they had a falling out with Kathy because they were never on the show again.
I wonder what happened.
I know. And then it became more about the first two seasons was like with her first husband, Matt, and all of that. I actually just had Tiffany Reinhardt on.
I saw that. I didn't listen to it yet, but how was it?
You would like it.
Oh my gosh. The assistants have all the dirt. You know, Julie was Bethany's assistant on Bethany Ever After. And I feel like she was so great to talk to because she's also very intelligent. And so she was well-spoken and was able to articulate things in a way that I just never, you know, you see things from a different perspective, I guess.
Totally.
But Kathy's show, it did kind of go through different incarnations. I remember her parents were so funny. And there was one time I always seem to remember, and I don't even know if this happened on the show or if Kathy just talked about it in her stand-up special or on the show. But I remember her talking about her parents loving to go to eat at Rage, which is like this gay bar here on Santa Monica.
Yeah.
And I remember always thinking like, what's this Rage place? And then when I moved here to Los Angeles, then I got to know what Rage was. And I always associate it with Kathy's parents. But there was a lot of, even though Kathy wasn't gay and those two friends that she had on were only on the first season, there was still a lot of like gay sensibilities to that show. And she was always performing for gay people. And so there was representation, even though she herself didn't identify as LGBT.
And also like her friendship with Anderson Kubrick. I remember in her act, a big part of her act was talking about all the inappropriate stuff. Like she would send pictures of herself topless to Anderson just for shock value. And also like her friendship with Lance Bass. And this was before they were out. But I guess subversely, like that was a way of them coming out by like, attaching yourself to Kathy Griffin and you're a man, right. You know.
Well, also, it's early on. You mentioned like is all pop culture inherently gay, and Kathy like spoke the language of pop culture, and I think that's why so many of us were so attracted to her show and her stand-up specials because she was just telling stories about celebrities, and they weren't stories we were going to hear from everyone else. Because I hate to generalize, but I don't think like straight guys are really interested in like someone running into Celine Dion backstage
right.
at something.
Whitney Houston,
but,
yeah.
Right. But like we were eating those stories up when Kathy was telling them on stage because it was a language we spoke.
The very first stand-up special. So she had two initial stand-up specials. She had Hot Cup of Talk. And then she had the one, which was, I guess, the kickoff for the show, which it was literally just called The D-List. Now, the initial one, Hot Cup of Talk, was just regular stand-up about her life. And maybe it was even before Suddenly Susan or just around that time. And then when she did the special called The D-List, it was basically a filmed version of, I guess, a monthly show that she was doing at Largo, where she would literally get on stage and tell these insane stories about these huge celebrities, about her actual encounters, backstage at award shows and all that. And that was, I guess, her initial pitch for My Life on the D-List. But both of those are actually still on YouTube. You can like buy them for like $1.99, whatever. She didn't have the Kathy Griffin shtick that eventually got dialed up to like a 10.
Right.
She was more, it wasn't like, you're gonna shit. It was less of that.
Yeah.
It was more just telling the story. She was so good.
I know those specials. Even my boyfriend and I were binging Top Chef Just Desserts, and it was like a Top Chef spinoff that only lasted 2 seasons. But I'm like new to the Top Chef universe. Anyway, we found like basically like bootleg versions of the first season, and there's always like, you know how they do the promo scrolls on the bottom of the episode.
Yeah.
And we were watching an episode the other night, and it showed at the bottom of the screen like Kathy Griffin, Whores on Crutches, like that was the name of the stand-up special, and it was like just that made me like crack up. I was like, oh my god, like how insane that she had a Bravo comedy special called Whores on Crutches, and I missed those specials. Like they used to do them so regularly, and even I know that she's sort of had a famous falling out from the network, but I just don't understand why they haven't found other people to fulfill those those roles or to try comedy on the network, because I think that's missing from the network. And I think there's plenty of other wonderful, even someone like Amy Phillips does a different style of comedy. I think let's do it. Like, let's see what that stand-up special is like, or what that she could do something so catered to the Bravo audience that I think we would eat it up. And I almost feel like Bravo sometimes is missing like that thing that makes it feel like an insider's club.
Yes,
does that make sense?
You're so right. I never thought about that in the wake of Kathy Griffin, there hasn't been another comedian attached to Bravo. Right. I mean, she really was the face of the network. I mean, before Andy, I mean, it was Kathy Griffin. She had like one or two, eventually during the height of it, she had one or two specials a year. In addition to My Life on the D-List. I
think even more than two, because I remember she like broke a record. I don't know. I think there was even a point where maybe she had more than two. I could be wrong.
I really wonder what happened. Like, it can't just be a personal falling out with Andy Cohen. There has to be something. Like, Bravo, Andy is not God.
Yeah, I don't know. But I miss the comedian space on there. Even people like the Bitch Sesh women, they're touring right now. It's like, or Watch What Crappens, or there's a lot of us on the road. It's like, why? I'm surprised they haven't tried to do anything like that. It's so cheap. But the other thing, real quickly too, is that I feel like not just Bravo, but all the networks in general right now, they seem so afraid of making stars. And that worries me in general. Because,
wait, what do you mean they seem afraid of making stars?
Like, I think everyone wants to hire people that already come with their big followings, and they don't take it. Like, Kathy didn't have, when she first started on Bravo, I don't know that she had some like humongous following. She grew a following over the course of those years on Bravo. And so I just wish all the networks would take maybe some more chances and not just require that people have 5 million followers and have done 2 Disney shows. And I don't know if that makes any sense. Does that make sense?
You know, it does make sense. Somebody I just thought of when I was literally racking my brain to think, like, but wait, there have to have been other like comedic leaning people to be on Bravo. And do you remember Brandy and Julie?
I love them. Yeah.
Love them, right? They were on the People's Couch, and I actually used to work with them like back in the day for this lesbian website called autostraddle.com. And Brandy and Julie used to do movie reviews for us. Like, they would literally like go to the theater, film themselves on an iPhone, and they did Sex in the City 2. They did what was that movie where Kristen Stewart played Joan Jett, whatever movie that with the Runaways.
Oh yeah, Runaways, yeah.
And they did, that it was that year. I guess it was like 2010, 2009, and they would literally like film themselves, like go into the movie, they'd do the whole thing, they would come back, and then to camera they would review the movie, and they would also reenact it. And the joke was they hated every movie they saw. Like, there was not one movie that they actually liked. Every movie was worse than the previous.
That's funny.
And so then they got cast on People's Couch, which was like perfect. And that was comedic leaning. But then they also hosted the Vanderpump Rules after show, maybe like season 4 and 5 of that. And then they didn't do the after show after that. And Brandy and Julie were so pissed about the loss of People's Couch and the Vanderpump Rules after show. They no longer watch Bravo. They don't.
Oh my God, they gave it up.
They don't know what a Leah McSweeney is. You know?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like, I guess anyone from any job, when you leave a job, it's like you don't want to think about that job. They would be
perfect to like bring back. They know it all. They speak the language. It's like they're perfect.
People's Couch was really great. And I know there's always been the Super Bravo fans always say, let's bring it back. And the argument against it, what I've heard was that it was just really expensive because it was owned by like another country. But I don't see how we can't like reformat that. Like, it doesn't have to be the same format, but that kind of same idea of people watching. But I don't know. I never understand the decisions with any of these networks. And I've taken meetings with a lot of these, I'm not saying Bravo specifically, but it's like, you wonder, like, why are you guys making these decisions? Like, I just saw there was a commercial for for that Bradshaw Boys. Like, have you seen that commercial?
Yeah.
And I'm like, who's making this decision? It seems like that seems like the type of show that would have been great when the Osbournes premiered, like that would have been around the time to premiere that. But to do it in 2020 and it like looks so generic-y, and watch, maybe I'm wrong and it'll be a big hit. But to me, it just seemed like, who's making that decision? Like, that's stupid. Like,
Yeah.
I don't get it.
So let's now, I want to go back in time, go back to our youth. So how old are you?
Unclear. I'm not.
Unclear. Okay.
No, I'm 30, I'm 34. I'm 34.
Oh, you're 34. Okay.
Also, I love that I had to like think about what year I was born for a second.
Okay, so I'm 37. So we are this is the general sphere. I think in general, Housewives fans, Bravo watchers, we are the demographic.
Right.
And most likely we all grew up watching the same gay shit. And I guess to start, when I think back to the best stuff of like the 90s and the early 2000s, when it comes to TV, for daytime TV, The View and the Rosie O'Donnell Show.
Jess, I was obsessed with the Rosie O'Donnell Show, like obsessed with it. Like I every single day, and The View too. To this day, I'm still obsessed with The View. I watch it.
Yeah.
The View is right up there with Housewives in terms of like treating it like a sport. Like that casting to me is still so thrilling when it changes and everything.
Who are your top 3 panelists of all time?
Rosie's my favorite. I always thought the show was the most electric with her on. And I think even if you disagreed with her politics, I think you can look at it and she produced the best TV when she was on that show. And I think Joy, I love Joy. I worship Joy. And I loved like a Meredith, Elisa Ling. I also like that sort of stable,
the normal one.
The normal one.
Yeah.
But you know who I was just thinking, I was on a hike the other day and I was like, of course I'm thinking about talk show hosts and stuff, like, cause that's what I think about all the time. But I was thinking about Michelle Collins, and I worship Michelle Collins too. And I thought I watched those years I think Michelle was on. I don't know if it was just 1 year or 2, but she was so quick-witted, and I think she was too quick for her daytime. She was too quick-witted. Like, I think a lot of the jokes, she talks so quickly that I think half the audience, it went right over their heads. And I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it airs too early on certain places and people it's moving too fast. But her, and also Bonnie Hunt, who I worship, she had a talk show for a couple years. And I thought Bonnie, to me, the two of them are similar in the fact that I think they're too quick-witted for daytime. And I don't know why. I wish the audience wasn't like that. But I'm like, they were both so fast on their feet, and watching them interview was like a master class in how to remain present and get a joke in. And like, but largely Michelle wasn't very, unfortunately, liked, I don't think, by the View audience. And I loved her though. And so I was thinking about the two of them and how they're similar in that way. I think there's something about daytime. You can't be too fast. You have to be, I don't know.
You can't be too fast.
You can't be too quick-witted.
Daytime TV, you can't be too fast.
They want you funny, but not too funny. You know, Ellen sort of does a different thing where I
can't with Ellen.
I know, I agree, but she does a very, like, her sense of humor is very slower paced, much slower paced, I think. It's very basic too. It's like, let's scare someone.
Right, exactly.
Like Bonnie Hunt would totally, if you watch any of those old Bonnie Hunt interviews, you'd see a joke go even over the guest's head. There's like, I was watching an interview she did with, oh my God, Kellen Lutz from Twilight. Do you know who that? He's like this gorgeous hunky guy. And she's like throwing these hilarious jokes at him, and they're just over his head. Like he's not even getting them. And Ellen, I don't think she's ever thrown a joke over anyone's head. It's just like, let's scare you.
I actually completely agree with you. For my favorite View panelists, Meredith, Joy, and Rosie.
You know, in the fall, I was at The View, and I got to, Meredith was there and Joy was not. So Meredith was a guest.
Oh, wow.
And I got to like meet them all after the show, but I was upset Joy wasn't there. But I got to meet like Whoopi, Sunny, Megan Meredith, and Abby was there. Abby Huntsman was there at the time.
That's so fun. Was there any between commercials? Did you like observe anything or hear anything?
Nothing really. No, I was visiting New York, and I was like running late. And so I had just gotten there like right before the show was like about to start. Normally the audience, like they pile you in or whatever. So I got there like right before the show started, and then I only got to chat for like a second after the show.
But actually, one of my favorite things on The View was when Joy used to do like Joy's Comedy Corner. I love
Yeah,
I love that, and
me
I
too.
also love Susie Essman. Like
The two of them together are so great.
the greatest. I got to go because I'm in New York. Like I'm from New York, and I've lived here all my life. So I've gotten to see like all my favorite shows, like the ones that tape in New York. I gotten to like either go when the show is not on, like just like literally to the set or to a live taping. And I got to go to the Rosie set, not a live taping, but I got to go to the set, the chairs and the curtain. Those
Wait, the original Rosie show?
yeah, the original Rosie
The original
show.
talk show. Oh my
Yes.
God. My dream.
That is truly iconic.
Oh
Like
yeah.
that
I mean,
set.
and back then it was people, so many people, millions and millions of people were watching. Now audiences are so fragmented. But back at that time, like everyone watched the Rosie O'Donnell Show, like everyone's mother, everyone's grandmother, like, kids at school, like everyone was just watching it. And it was so family friendly. She was able to cater and be funny and brilliant to such a large audience. It was the best.
Remember when she was out? Remember when she had like a staph infection and they had like a rotating, like I actually like Meredith and Joy, like filled in for her, Barbara Walters, Kathy Griffin, Jane Krakowski. I actually like in some weird, even Anna Gasteyer, I remember from SNL, in some strange way, I loved those just as much.
Yeah, it was the vibe of the show. You know, I recently had a friend send me the Joy episode that Joy was like guest hosting on. My friend Ramin wrote that View book, The Ladies Who Punch. Did you read that?
Oh, yes, amazing.
It was like the most
best.
amazing book, the best book. But so he had sent me like a video of that episode where Joy was guest hosting.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so strange because she didn't even finish the show. She had to go leave for The View. So like she's guest hosting, and then the very last, like after commercial break, it's like Joy's not there. I forget who, somebody else took over. Maybe it was John McD or something. But the whole episode is so wild because like when would that ever happen where Joy's just like, I'm going to guest host today, but I've got to go before the episode ends. It was so bizarre, but it was great.
I think part of the reason the Rosie show also had this like buzz of excitement was that all these shows like say they're live, but like Watch What Happens Live half the time is not live. I mean, Quarantine, obviously none of it is live, but Watch What Happens Live, you know, at least twice a week, they pre-tape the shows. The Rosie show, from what I remember, for the large majority, truly was live.
Yeah.
Like they weren't like editing things out. It's like whatever happened was like going out on air. So I think that also added to the air of excitement. There was something about it that just really worked. I also really liked her. Did you watch the show she did for the OWN network, the Oprah?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
I like that too, but I
Yeah.
guess people didn't.
You know, I think the problem with that is towards the end of the run of that she had pivoted to more of like a Larry King style, which I think suited her much better than that big stage. That big stage, I didn't understand that at all. But when she pivoted to the Larry King style, it felt like it worked so much better. And I wish it could have gone on like that. But that was also at a weird time where like no one really knew what channel OWN was. And like it was very early in OWN. And I think they were hoping that Rosie would help launch the network to a wider audience. And unfortunately, I think people were like, what's OWN?
Do you recall the episode, like the episode of that show that really sticks out in my mind? She did one with Natasha Lyonne, who she's genuinely close with. And I think because they were such genuine friends, Natasha basically told her entire story. The drug addiction and this like open heart surgery that she had to have, and like she almost died, and Rosie was waiting in the hospital. Like it was so honest and real.
You know, Rosie's a fantastic interviewer, and you know from interviewing people, it's like not always so easy to get stuff out of people. And you have to have a warm presence, and you have to make people feel comfortable. And she always, no matter who she was talking to, I think Rosie was always able to warm up to them and get them to open up in a way they weren't with other people. And I've sort of realized that over the years of starting to interview like, you know, celebrities or reality people and stuff like that, I'm starting to realize like those tricks that they did.
Ooh, wait, tell me, give me like a trick that you picked up.
Well, you know, the one trick that I just recently picked up is to say the person's name over and over again, whether you're on no matter what side of it you're on. If you just keep like, if I just kept saying Jess, then it feels more like we're buddies than if we're met for the first time. And I noticed that I actually interviewed Katie Couric, which that sounds gross and name dropping.
That was you can drop that name, and Katie Couric is gay culture.
She was amazing, but she kept saying my name, and that when I was editing it, that was a moment I was like, oh fuck, like she knows what she's doing, because just that little thing of hearing someone's name when in a two-way conversation, you both just feel more comfortable. The guard goes down a little bit, and you feel like we're buddies.
I love that.
That was one trick that I just recently was like, oh shit, like that's smart. People even brought that up to me. They were like, I loved how she kept saying Danny, because a big star like that, when they're giving an interview, oftentimes it feels like they're just doing press, like they're just, and so that helps the conversation just flow and feel more conversational, I guess.
So I know that Mariah is your number one.
She is. Yeah, I love her.
So I was talking to a friend the other day about how do our pop icons, or like our pop queens, how is it that we suddenly fall in love with one over the other? Like, why is it that some people are obsessed with Britney, some people are obsessed with Gaga, some it's Beyonce? What is it in the music or in the personality that is hooking us in it's always at a certain age. I think.
Yeah, and I think it is at a certain age. Like whoever the big star is, or whoever like the first album you get or the first concert you go to, you know, like you have these moments with these people throughout your own life that you associate with them, and then you kind of hook on to them. And
what was the first Mariah album, or like the video? What hooked you with Mariah?
The very first her first self-titled album, I loved Vision of Love, like right from the jump. I remember being a little kid, and I had the cassette tape, and my mom, she loved all the divas. Like, so she always had in her car the cassettes. She would have like Gloria Estefan, she'd have Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey, Celine Dion, like all the divas. She would always have that. And so that's what I'd listen to when I was with my mom. We would listen to these big voices and these divas. And I remember the Mariah, that first album, I would listen to it over and over again. And then for a birthday one year, I got like the karaoke version of it. Because I had like a karaoke machine that I got, like, I don't know if it was a gift or like a hand-me-down from a neighbor or something. But I gotten the Mariah Carey karaoke thing. And I remember listening or trying to like sing like her. And I hope that tape is burned to the ground, but somewhere it exists, where I'm like singing Someday by Mariah over a karaoke track. So yeah, I liked her right from the beginning. But also I think what your parents listen to is also very important, because that's what my mom was into. And so that's what I just would hear around the house or when we were driving somewhere. So that's what I got into.
And did you like the second half of her career, or I guess like kind of like the evolution, like from Butterfly on, and then all the stuff she did in the 2000s? I felt like she kept elevating, and her voice like matured over time.
Yeah, I think she's so misunderstood by the wider population, and a lot of people just think of her as this over-the-top diva, but a lot of that persona is something she plays into, and she's very self-aware, and I don't think people get that self-awareness. It's almost, it goes over people's heads. We talk about going over, and she gets it. She's playing into that persona that we all love. And she's still, the last album, Caution, was brilliant. I mean, some of the best R&B, even critically, it was widely acclaimed, but you'll still hear people in the larger population say she's terrible, she can't sing, and she's whatever. And she not only came out with that album so late in her career, which is a very rare thing, she wrote every song on that album. And it's like, you have to even just respect the penmanship of her. But people just, I don't know if people just assume she's only a singer, and maybe because she hasn't had these big radio hits in a long time, or maybe because her voice has changed from what it was when she was 20. Maybe people just think she's done and whatever, but she's still so late in her career coming out with these amazing songs that are critically acclaimed and beautiful that she wrote.
I'm living for her book that's coming out.
Oh, I cannot wait. Oh my God. I've been like emailing the publishers and stuff like, I'll do anything for a advanced copy. And they're like, no, stop emailing. But I'm trying, but I'm dying to read it. It's out in a few weeks now.
I thought you were going to say that you would do anything for an interview, but you just want an advance copy.
Oh, no, I like literally just want the galley. Like, of course, I'd love an interview too. I've also been begging for that, but I just want the galley of the book.
I really hope that she goes on Howard Stern. I think that she would spill.
She's got a lot to spill, and I'm ready to hear it. Do you have it? Wait, Jess, what's your favorite Mariah Carey song? I always ask my guests this.
Ooh, that's a great question. You used to always ask your guests their favorite Mariah song. Okay, I love Honey. I love The Roof. I love Heartbreaker. That's just like a real go-to, and it's my favorite video of hers with Jay-Z. I really love Clown on Charm Bracelet, the song about Eminem.
You can go on all the number one hits too. People forget about how many number one she has, but that's neither here nor there.
I like her deep cuts, and I love all this. I love all the songs on Caution. My friend was just telling me actually today. I was texting him about the new song that just came out. What's the name of it?
Save the Day.
Save the Day.
Yeah.
I was texting him about it, and he was telling me, he's like, I can't wait for the Rarities album. He's like, I really hope that the original version, basically there's a song called Yours on Charm Bracelet, and he was saying, I hope the original that she did with Justin Timberlake is on there. And I was like, she did a song with Justin Timberlake? And he was do you know this story?
I mean, I don't know that there's more. I don't know more to the story. Is there?
Basically that they recorded the song together and ultimately hit the version with him. She did one solo, one with him. That's the way they always do it. And the one with him never made the album because they were going to release it as a single, and the labels, like his label and her label, were basically fighting over the fact that you can't release this with him as a single because it's going to impact the singles that were being released off of Justified, because this was 2002. And so he was like telling me this over text, and I was like, that was a
simpler time.
That was a critical mistake. Like, how do you just like trash a song, especially like 2002, like Justin Timberlake with Mariah?
There's so many. She's got a lot of stuff. Even Where Are You Christmas, which is a holiday song. I've been begging for them to release that because she wrote that originally and she was supposed to do it. So I'm like interested in that. And
Faith
then also
Hill get it in the end.
Yeah, she's the one who sings it now. We hear it on the radio, but it's like Mariah wrote that. And then also, what was the other one I was just thinking of? Oh, Loverboy originally was supposed to be, it had a different sample in it. And then J-Lo, of course, famously took the sample and released I'm Real with Ja Rule with the sample before Mariah's version came out. But Mariah's version was original. It was just like studio play behind the scenes that they were trying to fuck her over because this was the Tommy Mottola years. And so like Mariah's original version was actually in the trailers for Glitter. But fans have never heard like the whole thing of it. So I know a lot of people are hoping for that too, because then Mariah didn't want to release a song after J-Lo had this big hit using the sample, even though Mariah's was done first. It was just a big.
Why is stuff like Showgirls, like why does that wind up being such gay camp?
Oh my God, there's a great documentary about Showgirls that we just watched. It's called You Don't Know Me. I think if anyone likes Showgirls, they should watch it because it's very interesting kind of how it's caught on. But that specifically is something that is just so, I think what it is that the movie doesn't know it's camp, but it's so crazy. I think if you go in trying to make something camp, it doesn't work. But if it just happens naturally, which I do think that now the director of that movie, or maybe it's the writer or the director of that movie, tries to say or act like he always intended it to be.
Oh, please.
But it was clearly not intended. Right. Yeah. He's just trying to, of course he's embarrassed. Yeah. I think that's what it is about that movie. I think it's so off the wall. Every moment is acted bizarrely, written bizarrely, shot. It's beautifully shot too, which is weird. Like
everyone is in a different movie.
Everyone is in a different movie.
You got Elizabeth Berkley, Gina Gershon, who may have made me gay, and then what the fuck's it? Kyle, what's his last name?
Not Kyle Chandler, Kyle MacLachlan.
Yes, Kyle MacLachlan. Trey, Charlotte's husband.
Right.
He's in an entirely different movie.
Trey McDougal's in a different movie. Trey McDougal's
in a different movie. Like I was basically saying to you
good.
when we were emailing, I was telling you how like I'm obviously a woman, but I'm really a boy. Like I'm really like a gay boy.
You have the sensibilities of a gay man.
Yes, I do.
I get it.
Like entirely, like 100%.
You know, I got very upset. I just need to get this off my chest because on my podcast, one of the sponsors you know how they give you like the read for the commercial, and one of the reads had the word Versace in it. And so I was saying Versace because in honor of Showgirls, and
as a joke,
as a joke. And I thought, of course, everyone's going to know that. Like I just assumed everyone would know that. And then I got so many messages, and I even got emails being like, you said Versace wrong. And I was like, it's in honor of Showgirl. And I was getting so mad at people. There was like a whole week where that ad ran. And I was like livid with people. Anytime I'd get a message being like, you said Versace wrong or trying to correct me, I was like, oh my God, have you not seen Showgirls? Like, what is wrong with everyone?
That is so fun. Did the ad company come back to you and make you redo it?
Though they did. The first time it came back, they were like, oh, we think you said it wrong. And I was like, no, I was like, they'll get it. Like they're pop culture lovers. They'll get it.
They'll get it. That's funny.
It was very obvious too. I was like, and you know, I was reading, I don't even remember what it was like for perfume or cologne or something maybe. And I was like reading all the names of these brands that they had. And I was like, and Versace. And I thought for sure they'll get it. It's of course how would I not know how to say Versace? I don't know. It's just annoying.
What were your favorite hour-long dramas, like the teen dramas of the day? Like I loved My So-Called Life and Felicity, Dawson's Creek. What were the shows that like you felt seen for the first time?
Dawson's was really exciting to me. I like that Dawson was like a film lover in that show. And then even before that, though, my family, like we used to watch 90210 like as a family, not my dad, but my two older brothers and my mom and I, we would like sit down, and I was very young. And looking back, I'm like, why did we watch it as like a family hour? But
was this when it was like very issue based, like the first like season or two?
Yeah, it was we watched it till the end. I remember watching like the finale with all of us.
Oh, wow.
Like the season 10. It was 10 seasons.
Oh my God.
So I loved 90210.
Wait, you know who's my favorite side character in 90210? Emily Valentine.
Oh, yeah.
That's gay culture right there.
She's, yeah.
With like, because she was like edgy and like she wore like a leather jacket. Like I was very drawn to Emily Valentine.
You know, I remember being almost like a little confused about my sexuality seeing Rebecca Gayheart. Do you know?
Oh my God, yes.
Like when she was on 90210, I remember. And even after that, I always thought like she's like one of the most beautiful people ever. Like just in general, I was always so enamored by the way she looked. And I remember being confused. I was like, the Noxzema commercials and like.
She was on, did you watch that show Nip Tuck?
A little bit of it. I watched like the later seasons of it.
She, I think, had like a little arc on that as well.
Did you ever see Jawbreaker?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's like gay movie too.
Wait, you know what's God? Whatever happened to her? Is she still acting?
I think she does like little. I don't know. She has kids with Eric Dane, who's in Euphoria now.
Yes.
I did recently like a deep dive on her Instagram just to see, and she still looks stunning, but I don't know what she's doing like work wise.
Rebecca Gayheart and Denise Richards, they're sort of the same type. I felt like they would get the same. They probably were always up for the same stuff.
I mean, like both of them are just disgustingly good looking. Like you look at them and you're like, is that even real? I don't know. I don't know.
It's so good.
Yeah. Wild Things was so confusing to me too as a young kid. I mean, speaking of that scene, the threesome scene, I remember thinking like, am I straight?
You couldn't figure out which one you were attracted to.
Yeah. And then they showed Kevin Bacon's penis at the end and I was like, no, I'm definitely gay.
Well, you know, it's so funny. This year over Memorial Day weekend, I was sharing a house with some friends. It was like the first time I left the apartment, and for like a little getaway. So I'd been like home essentially, since March until Memorial Day, and so we were out with staying at this rented a house with friends, and I was like, please, can we just like watch a couple movies at night? And every night, one of the movies we watched Wild Things. We watched Out of Sight with J-Lo.
Oh yeah.
Classic.
Also the hot movie.
That is the hottest movie. I mean, it's like J-Lo's in the trunk and just George Clooney in his prime, because like he's bad, he's a criminal. Like it's so
There's
good.
something so sexy about that movie. I agree. Yeah.
They had amazing chemistry. Did you, so like what else did you watch? Like were you into like the gay shows, like Queer, like I loved Queer as Folk.
Yeah, Queer as Folk was really, I was going to say important to me. It was important to me. I remember sneaking into the basement.
Yeah, I was just going to say, how did you sneak the DVDs?
We all snuck it, right? Like, I think it wasn't even the DVDs. I remember we had like one of those cable boxes that you're maybe not supposed to have in the basement of our house. And I remember in high school, I would go downstairs. I knew it would come on it would be on at night on the Showtime channel. They would air it like all throughout the night. Mm-hmm. And I would watch it. And I wasn't even watching it like weekly, because I would just sneak to watch it. So I didn't even exactly know the storylines of what was going on the show. I would just sort of put it on and be like enamored by the fact that it was like gay people doing gay things.
That show was so ahead of its time. It's sort of mind-boggling that even happened, that entire show even aired on television.
On Showtime.
It was like very racy.
The very first episode, I remember there's that scene at the end where the Gail Harold character like pours, I think it's water or something, mm-hmm. over his body, and then they have sex, and it was like, that was the first episode. And it was amazing. And I wish we had more of that kind of like, I miss that soapy kind of gay drama that I wish another network would do. I know Bravo's rebooting it, but I think it's going to be for the Peacock.
How can Queer as Folk air on Bravo?
I thought I read that it was going to be on Bravo and then they moved it to Peacock. So I'm assuming that means they'll be able to be racier.
Queer as Folk, you're either going there or you're not going there. You're either Queer as Folk or like Will and Grace. Pick a lane.
Right. Like, I don't even want to see it rebooted unless you're seeing a lot of, the sexuality part of it. Because to me, as a young kid seeing it, that was what was so influential about the show to me. Like, I had never seen gay people hooking up on TV before. That was the first time. No, you like literally got to see gay sex, and there was nowhere else on TV that you could see even what the process of that was like. Like, you didn't see, I wouldn't have even known how intercourse worked as a gay man if it weren't for that show, and also porn. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, that is important to that show.
There was that show Looking, but Queer, I don't know. For me, like Looking, it wasn't for me, but Queer as Folk was so for me. Like, the music was great. It had an aesthetic. It had a vibe. I was, again, I know I am a girl. I was completely obsessed with Brian Kinney. I wanted to be him. I loved his car. I loved the way he dressed. I loved his car. I loved his
confident.
I loved his job. I loved his loft.
Yeah, I mean, I for sure wanted him. I mean, I thought he was like the hottest person I'd ever seen. Did you watch the original L Word?
Of course. That's like the greatest show that ever was.
I was just going to say, it seems like we sort of lost the LGBT drama.
Well, with the L Word, that show really, like, for women, that, I keep wanting to say penetrated. Like, that show,
penetrated. It does.
That show, like, penetrated pop culture in a way that Queer as Folk was still underground. The L Word, they were on the cover of New York Magazine. Like, they were on buses. Like, it was Jennifer Beals. Like, it had a star power to it. Pam Grier was in it. So it had a ton of guest stars too, like Alan Cumming, and like it had a lot of money behind it and a lot of star power behind it. It too was very, very racy, but it had a lot of sexuality in it. They actually rebooted it. Do you know this? There was it's on now still, I think. I mean, if there wasn't the pandemic, they would have filmed the new season. But is it sick that I'm the only show I like don't really watch scripted TV much. The only show that I keep thinking like, but what about the L Word? How are we gonna get that?
Yeah, when are we getting it?
When are we getting it? I need the new season.
I miss all the shows, but in general, I miss like the gay drama. Like I miss the gay soap opera, the gay drama. And every few years, somebody tries and redo it. There was a great documentary on the Apple TV. I don't even know what that streaming service is called Visibility in Television. And it was fantastic about like all of these gay shows and sort of like the trajectory of everything from the very early days of LGBT representation to now.
I guess the closest thing, I wouldn't call Pose gay. It's different. It's a gay, it's more like historical and it is a gay, flashy, well, it's more trans. It's not really gay, but it's everything. I feel like that's really the current version of, or it's the next step.
And I don't know why I consider Pose more dramatic than soapy. Like, soap opera I always think of as like, someone's brother comes back or like from the dead or, you know what I mean? Does that make sense? It's like crazy kind of crazy storylines. Like Queer as Folk it had some crazy stuff going on. Like, I don't know. Maybe that's just how I remember it, but I remember it being like just crazy storylines, but also with the sex and the nudity and all of it.
If you're listening and if you've never seen Queer as Folk, if you're like a gay guy or if you're younger or whatever, like this was like before your time, it's most likely all on Netflix. It's so worth watching.
It's so worth it. And there's two, the original is good too. The UK version with Charlie Hunnam, who's now like a big, huge star. He was one of the leads of the UK version. You literally see him get a rim job at one point. Excuse my language, but like,
I love when you say on your show, "Cover your ears," and I do love when you say, "Excuse my language." We're like, I can't repeat this. If it's like you read lines from Rona, you're like, guys, I can't say it.
Because some of those shows they say crazy things, and then what always happens is people will yell at me, like they'll reach out or they'll write me poor reviews. Like, I can't believe Danny just said he wants Henry Cavill to sit on his face.
Did you get a negative review really saying that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I used to get a lot of complaints because I would say that all the time as like sort of a joke, like this is terrible. But I would say, yeah, it was like a joke. I would say, if I saw someone like really attractive, I'd be like, yeah, I want him to sit on my face. And it was a joke. It was maybe sort of serious too, but people didn't always like it. Or I would say, I'm wet.
Oh,
like in regards to like a hot person. And so I would get complaints about that. And then with the Housewives stuff, anytime I talk about like the poop stuff that happens on the Real Houses in New York, I get like lots of complaints. The people that like it, like I also get a lot of messages that are like, oh my God, I was laughing so hard when you were talking about Ramona shitting on the rug. But I'm like, I'm just recapping these episodes. So if these women do it, then I'm going to talk about it on the show. Right. But, people get mad. A lot of people don't like that kind of stuff. But the other thing I do think it's important, because as you are the same way, it's like being an LGBT person in this space. It's like, I also want to discuss things in the way that a gay man would and not try to talk about things the way that a straight woman would or someone else. It's like, to me, that's very important to use the language that a gay man would use, if that makes sense.
Totally. Like, you don't want to neuter yourself.
Don't want to neuter myself. And I think it's important for just even in a very small scale version of representation. We're talking about all these shows. And if there's like some young gay person, I hope they will listen to my show and maybe they'll feel comfortable with themselves. I don't know.
One final thought. My final thought on Brian Kinney. Another thing of his.
I love you. You're like, one more thing about Brian Kinney. I got to get off my chest.
This is one more final thing. Another thing of his that I wanted, and I actually did seek out at like fairs, like when they're, in summertime, like boardwalk fairs. Remember he had that like puka shell bracelet?
Puka shells were a big thing at that time too.
I loved his puka shell. And also another thing that's gay culture, thumb rings.
Thumb rings. Oh my God, thumb rings. I had one from American Eagle. Wore everywhere.
I had so many rings from American Eagle. In fact, I used to call it Egale.
Oh my God. We didn't, like there was Abercrombie, American Eagle, and then there was Aeropostale, or I don't even know if I'm saying that right. Yeah. But we didn't have a lot of money at that time. And I remember like going to, like for school clothes and stuff, we'd have to go to Aeropostale, and none of their clothes fit like proper at all. It was like a large was like a 3XL or something, like, and every one of the shirts would be a different, they would all be marked XL, but they'd all be a different size, you know, because it was just cheap.
Yeah, that's like the Gap. Like no two things are the same.
Mm-hmm.
So stupid. Okay, speaking of thumb rings,
how are you going to do this transition?
Speaking of thumb rings, Angela Chase and Jordan Catalano.
Wow. You know, I didn't discover My So-Called Life until very later, so I didn't watch it when it was on. But I think it was around college time, people were talking about how great My So-Called Life was, and that was the time where I was like inhaling everything that I thought or I heard about that I never seen before. And so I watched it in college. And in general, Jared Leto, I mean, stunning, like disgustingly beautiful.
Now, My So-Called Life was like a very, very girl. I don't know if gay guys would connect to it as much because it was very much about a girl's inner world, the inner voice and the inner sort of dialogue of, what's her name? Who played Angela Chase?
Claire Danes.
It was very much about like her inner monologue, and like she narrated the whole show, and like it was a lot about, like, I remember when they're like in the boiler. I don't know how into this show. Do you remember the episode where they were in the boiler room?
I remember it vaguely.
And she says something like, again, this is like a voiceover. She's like, my entire life became divided into kissing and not kissing. And isn't that so? It's like when you first have your first boy girl thing, like just when you're young and you have your first crush.
Those firsts are so important.
That's like exactly what happens. Like when you're young, when you're,
I don't know if you feel the same way, but I feel like for gay people, you almost have that moment a couple times because for me, I had at the moment where I had my first like real kiss with a girl in like 7th grade. I remember it behind a Dairy Queen in Ohio. And then I remember later on, I had my first guy kiss, and I like that first guy kiss. I will like never forget. And actually I just found my journal from like the time I was coming out of the closet. I came out around 21-ish, around there, but I had written about the time I had my first kiss, and it was still fresh at that time. So I have like this very detailed account of it in my journal from that time. And it was all these details that I forgot, but I still always remembered the moment. Mm-hmm. You know, like I didn't maybe remember everything that happened before and after, but I'll never forget that first kiss.
Yeah.
I'm like reminiscing here.
No, you're like, let me go get that journal and read a few entries. Yeah, My So-Called Life, and that show is also special and will forever be untainted because it only lasted that one season. The whole thing is like 14 episodes, and that's it. Whereas now they run things for 7 seasons, too long, frankly. Right. Like some shows really should just be one season. Like I remember, did you watch that show, The Affair, on Showtime?
No, I never watched it, but I know what it is. Yeah. Just
a random example of a show that first season was so brilliant and such like a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it was over. And I remember saying to my partner, like, I don't know how they're going to do another season. It was almost like a book, like a novel, in that it was like beginning, middle, and end. The show went on for 6 more years.
Yeah,
and I couldn't even get through it. I was like, this is ridiculous.
And it sort of taints the legacy too. I feel like Will and Grace did that. Like the first run of Will and Grace, like towards the end of the first run of Will and Grace, I think it definitely started to kind of peter out or whatever. It was like not as good as it once was, but it was still so great as a whole. And then when they came back, there were definitely some episodes that were good in the reboot, but I watched everyone. And by the end of the rebooted run of it, I was like, why did they do this? I feel like in my mind, I'm not going to be as quick to go back to those early episodes of Will and Grace because I just feel like it soured it in my mind.
Really?
And I don't even, and like by the end, I didn't understand. They had almost done the finale in the same way they did the original finale, which was, none of it made any sense of the writing in terms of the reboot.
See, I watched the first season of the reboot, and I really liked it. And then I just never, I don't know.
It fell apart.
Yeah, is that what happened?
Yeah, like by the end, it was just a shell of itself. It was, I was embarrassed. I was uncomfortable by the last season of the Will and Grace reboot. I like felt like I was watching a totally different show. And then, like I said, the way they chose to end the reboot so similarly to the first run in a worse way almost. It made no sense. I just thought it was horrendous. The writing was just terrible.
Do you have like a favorite episode? 'Cause I was a big Will and Grace. That's like, when I think of Will and Grace, I think my freshman year of college, we would gather in like my best friend. I actually have him as a guest on the podcast a lot. My friend Andy from college, we would go into his dorm room. By the way, we were all gay. None of us out, but we were all gay on my floor. Yeah. The boys were all like learning the NSYNC choreography. Like when the It's Gonna Be Me video.
You look back and you're like, of course we were all gay.
But like, how did it happen that like we were all gay, but none of us were talking about it like at all? But anyway, so wait, tell me your Will and Grace highlights.
I love all of Will and Grace. I didn't watch it until later either. I didn't watch it when it was originally on, but I watched it when I moved to Chicago shortly after I had come out in Chicago. My best friend Jill, she'd always told me I need to watch Will and Grace, and I had just come out to her. She's like, you got to get it. I literally got the box set of all of them, and I binged them all. This must have been 2008-ish. So it might have, I think it had just ended, the original run of it, or something like, or right around there. And so I binged them all, and then I would just keep watching. It became comfort food for me, where it was like anytime I was stressed or something, I was like, let's just rewatch Will and Grace or put on one of the discs on the DVD player. And so I love, like, I remember the Matt Damon one. I love the Thanksgiving one where they're doing in the car going to different Thanksgivings. Yes. I love that one. All the Karen Walker moments. She was my favorite.
Do you remember the episode, the most memorable Will and Grace episode? This is just for me personally, where they pretend to be interested in buying Sandra Bernhard's apartment so that they can become friends with her.
Yes, I remember that.
To me, nothing is better.
Right.
I mean, I'm so a huge like Sandra Bernhard person. I don't know where you stand on her, but that's
I like her.
Huge. Yeah. Are you a Madonna fan?
Yeah, I am.
I mean, I love when in your Beverly Hills recaps, when you play the clip of Secret from
My Baby's Got a Secret.
I mean, that's I'm a huge Madonna's like I talk about all roads like on this podcast, they all lead to like Madonna, Fire Island, Sandra Bernhard, or that logo show Finding Prince Charming, the gay bachelor show. All roads, like I can be talking about Real Housewives of New York, it will lead to Finding Prince Charming, that gay bachelor show.
I mean, yeah, I gotta, that album, that era of Madonna to me is just sort of like a pinnacle of pop culture, of pop icons. Like it's just, I mean, and she has so many eras like that. Like I was listening to Frozen the other day and I was like, oh my God, like I was obsessed with Frozen. Nothing Really Matters and Ray of Light, that era. And so there's been so many times throughout history where Madonna has had these highs. And I even think recently she's had a lot of good stuff, but then I always find like it gets lost somewhere. Like, you know, it gets lost, but she's had good stuff even as very recent too. And someone who's popping out new music, new material at an age past 40, like I'm always endlessly impressed by, because I know how difficult it must be because the industry is against women over a certain age.
Did you see that she's working with Diablo Cody to write a biopic of her life?
I did see like an Instagram post where she was with Diablo Cody and they were writing, and it was making me laugh so hard because as a ghostwriter, I was thinking like, I just could feel for Diablo Cody because she's sitting there at like her laptop and Madonna was just next to her and
like flicking licorice at her. It's like, are we getting this movie made or not? Like that was how I felt. I was like, Madonna, I need you to focus because I need this to be great.
Right. We all want it. And I'm, oh my God, I would salivate over a Madonna biopic or even like a limited series. Oh, I'm excited they're doing the Aretha one, and I'm so excited for that. I like, you know, we've gotten so many of these musical movies, but they're always around men. And so it's like, I'm ready for us to start making these movies about the women in the industry, because I'm way more interested in Aretha Franklin or Madonna than I am about, I don't know, what was the last?
Oh, there was
Rocket Man was good, but
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Right. There's so many about the men, and it's just like, give me a woman. I want to hear the female music.
Yeah. Well, the one that Julie and Brandy did, the Kristen Stewart, the Runaways movie was great.
I don't think I saw Runaways.
Oh, you should
I don't
watch
think
it.
I even saw it.
It's good. There's like Kristen K. Stu is doing like the gay thing before she was gay. It was like great.
Oh, I need to watch it.
2 thumbs up. Great.
But Brandy and Julie didn't like it?
They actually did love it because it was gay.
Oh, okay. Okay. I really did love Rocket Man. I thought that was like excellent. But it was annoying that it wasn't a gay lead. Like the guy they chose was not gay, but whatever.
What were your favorite seasons, or were you a fan of The Real World?
Oh yeah. I started to get really obsessed with The Real World around Hawaii with Ruthie, and then the gay stuff, I remember it with the Danny in New Orleans season when he had the don't ask, don't tell boyfriend. They had to blur out his face. To me, that was just like life changing too. It was, yeah. Same.
I had him on the podcast. He was phenomenal. He talked about everything, and he was like formative for me because that was like when I was coming out. Was like Danny. Yeah.
The Real World was so important for gay representation. It was one of the only shows we were seeing that. Also, MTV in general was formative, I think, for so many of us, because even around that time, they were doing those things like MTV Spring Break and stuff where they would literally just have people in like whipped cream bikinis. And it was impossible to like not really explore your sexuality at that time. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was like, you were going to be attracted to someone on the screen and you were going to figure it out.
You may have been too young for this. Do you remember when Jenny McCarthy did Singled Out?
Yes.
That was amazing. Cuz she was so like fun and flirty and sexy and like so naturally beautiful and brand new. Again, that was a star-making show for her, and the other guy was cute. He was funny, Chris Hardwick, and it was like a dating show. No, people don't talk about that enough.
Yeah, Singled Out was good. Did they reboot it, or is it being rebooted? I feel like I heard that somewhere. I think it's maybe rebooted for Quibi. I think they did. I think it's like literally on Quibi right now, but no one has Quibi.
I can't with Quibi.
No one has it.
So your favorites were, you liked Hawaii, you liked New Orleans.
Yeah, Hawaii, New Orleans. I'd say after Hawaii, I watched it pretty consistently for years after that. And then Las Vegas, I'll never forget like the hot tub moment. The very first episode, Trishelle in the hot tub with Steven. They had like a pregnancy scare. It was like, that was high drama. And to me, that was the start of these reality shows really going in that direction of like drinking a lot and boozing and partying. Because before that, it was more documentary style. And then they really leaned in, not just on MTV, but all of the networks started leaning into that boozing and giving the cast booze.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You bring up a couple points. Hawaii, for whatever reason, was an entry point, I think, for a lot of people. I don't know why. Maybe because it was more of the party, like it was maybe the first one to do like the hot tub drinking thing. But yeah, like I think also it changed from being a half-hour show to an hour long, like around around that time. There used to be like maybe like 24 episodes a season, and then it moved to like an hour long thing. So there was just like so much of it.
I'm also just imagining Colin from The Real World Hawaii. I think that was his name. I had such a crush on him.
Colin and Amaya. God. How he would like, yes. He fucked with Amaya.
He was such an asshole.
Such an asshole. Like the definition of a fuckboy.
Yeah.
I would do a rewatch. I would like pick a season. So many people in quarantine were doing Survivor rewatches. Did you do that at all?
No, and I mean, not a rewatch, but I did Survivor early on. Like those first maybe 3 seasons, I was addicted to Survivor.
Yeah. Okay. 2 more people. Gay culture. Richard Hatch and Jerry Manthe.
I mean, Richard Hatch talking about gay representation, he was like an evil villain.
Yes.
But it was like great. I mean, looking back, it was pretty amazing that they were ballsy enough to let this openly gay man just be a villain. And because not all gay men are one thing. It's like we can be a villain.
Some of us are good. Some of us are evil. You'll just have to wait and find out.
Right. Remember that woman when she was like, if you were getting eaten by the vultures, I wouldn't pass you on the street, or whatever that speech was about the other woman.
I wouldn't look away. Yes.
That was like, I mean, talk about iconic TV, Jess.
And Elizabeth Hasselbeck. Can we talk about it?
I know.
Crazy.
I know.
The world really is, it's all nuts.
And it all circles, it's like a weird small pool of people. It's like Elizabeth Hasselbeck. We were just talking about The View. I mean, all of these people are so interconnected. It's so bizarre.
By the way, did you, I briefly mentioned it a few minutes ago. Did you watch Finding Prince Charming?
You know how you mentioned all roads lead to that? I feel like my version of that is all roads are leading back to Top Chef Just Desserts. But I did not watch Finding Prince Charming, but I was addicted to Fire Island, the Logo show that aired at the same time.
Let's talk about it.
Why didn't they do more of that? Like, that was so good.
Well, I think the general feeling is that it wasn't so good. I think most people...
Fire Island. I'm like moving my position right now.
Yeah, Danny's literally in bed right now. He's about to get under the covers.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm like laying down now. The Finding Prince Charming, yeah, that and Fire Island was produced by Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos.
Yes,
too.
I
thought it was great.
I think the issue with Fire, who knows? I think ultimately it was because both of these aired on Logo, and Finding Prince Charming was supposed to get a second season. In fact, it was picked up for another season, but then the president of Logo changed. There was an executive overhaul, and I think the new person who came in was like, yeah, we're not doing that. And I think Fire Island probably suffered the same fate.
Well, there's this weird thing with the gay shows too, where unfortunately they have to be sort of perfect, and with reality TV, oftentimes what people are attracted to is the messy, but to be the first gay reality show, you can't be as messy because you almost have to present gay people to be in this perfect light.
But nothing could have been messy. I mean, ultimately, like, they find this guy, Robert Sepulveda Jr. Do you know what he looks like? Right?
I knew the whole story. Yeah, I remember him.
I mean, you're not going to have like a gay show without it being, it's going to be messy.
And I liked the messy. I liked Logo's A-list. They had A-list New York and A-list Dallas.
Loved it.
And to me, those shows were what we should have. We should have those kind of shows, as well as shows where we show really wonderful gay representation, or really, I don't know what the words I'm
positive
looking for are.
Positive. Yes.
Yeah, but like, I also want those messy queens just being messy, because that's something that happens in the community as well. Like,
you know, one of the contestants on Finding Prince Charming is this guy Jason Kaplan, and he is now Tinsley's makeup artist. He travels with her everywhere. He's done Bethany's makeup for the show. He's like a housewife's makeup guy.
Oh, interesting. That name sounds familiar to me. But yeah, I didn't get into Prince Charming. I watched the pilot episode, and I don't know why I didn't continue watching. Maybe because I was so busy with A-list or Fire Island.
Yeah.
I was into that.
So we'll end on this, and these are two big ones, and I know you're very passionate about one of them in particular.
Okay.
Can we really distill it down as to why the Ashlee Simpson Show was so goddamn fantastic?
Well, I mean, the Newlyweds Ashlee Simpson era, it was like all of that style of TV show was very brand new at the time. Like, the Osbournes had been on, I think, 6 months or something before Newlyweds came on the air. And then Ashlee Simpson Show followed after Newlyweds was such a success. And I think what was interesting about Ashlee was we watched them make a star. And I think she sort of felt like all of us. So we were getting sort of the inside look at celebrity vis-a-vis the Simpson family. So that was exciting. But then we were also putting ourselves in her shoes and being like, oh my God, could you imagine like becoming a big pop star? And we literally traced the making of her first album to the release and post-release. And that hadn't been happening on television before. You know, oftentimes MTV was doing those documentaries like Made or Diary, where they would do an hour-long special, like a diary of Britney Spears or something.
I loved those, by the way.
Oh, I did too. But they were so produced and so calculated. Like, we knew we would be following Britney as she was like finishing up Crossroads or something like that. Like, so we knew exactly what we were getting, and it was a promotional tool. But it was only 1 hour. It was 40 minutes. But with the Ashlee Simpson Show, it was like we were following her over the course of this long period of time, and we got to see her dating, and we got to see her making the album and then becoming a huge star. And then also the downfall. That's what was so interesting. Ashlee Simpson's downfall we saw post SNL, and that really was captivating TV. And so I think it was just a a collection of all those things. It was also really well produced.
And the music was legitimately great.
MTV did a great job with all of their, even watching The Real World, just like you, or The Hills, they would always have good music in it.
Yeah.
They got the rights to every song they wanted.
The other show that I was going to bring up, the last show on MTV that I loved, Making the Band, O-Town.
Oh, yeah.
That, again, it was so addictive and it was so great.
Yeah, both. And I loved Making the Band too. Even it was originally on ABC, and that's when we got the O-Town stuff. And then it moved to MTV.
Oh my God, you're right.
And then that's when we got like the Danity Kane of it all. And I loved both versions of it. But yeah, it was great to see what it's like to be, I remember just watching dance rehearsals of Danity Kane and being like, oh my God, it's so much work that they have to do. And then having these little fights and stuff. It was such great TV.
Will it ever this is kind of like the heyday, like the mid to late 90s, the early 2000s. Will it ever be that good again? I mean, I know we have Housewives, but there was something raw about it.
Yeah.
Like they weren't all like glammed up in makeup. You were seeing them in like baggy clothes that didn't fit them. There was a charm to it.
Because right now it feels like everyone that goes on a reality show, they know how to play the reality TV game, and so they're playing into that. And eventually, I think audiences are going to tire, and I think we're even starting to see that. MTV shifted to breaking the fourth wall a couple years ago with like Teen Mom and stuff like that, where they were showing producers on camera, and we're seeing that now. Bravo's definitely going more and more into that of like showing producers and just completely breaking the fourth wall. And I think we're just going to keep going backwards till we start seeing more and more raw. I think audiences are craving natural more documentary style than all the setup stuff, which was so popular for the past 10 years or so. But I think we want to see, going back to Newlyweds, we always got to see Jessica and Nick just going to like a chain restaurant.
Oh yeah.
And they weren't even mic'd a lot of the times. It was just boom mics. And so I think we'll go back to that. I think we're craving that. So I think it'll start to happen more and more, where if we're not just seeing that, we're going to see how these people really are off camera and not just to present themselves as, if that makes sense.
I guess just like final thought, just like your quick hot take, how are you feeling about just like the state of Bravo in general? We're going to have these new seasons coming up. Salt Lake City. Are you looking for it, or?
I'm excited to watch it. I hope it's good. I think I have heard mixed things. Like I've heard either it's amazing and the best show ever, or then I've also heard that they've had trouble with it. So I don't know I'm sure the truth lies somewhere in the middle there, but I'm excited to watch. And I do like that they're taking chances and giving us new cities and franchises. Like that's exciting to me, that they're not afraid to expand the formula a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a hot take on just the casting shakeups?
I think it's good to change up the cast. I think they need to not be afraid to do that. I think they need to not be afraid to do major shakeups, though. My sort of issue, or what I think, is that they oftentimes will get rid of maybe like one or two people, but they're afraid to just start fresh. And I know everyone has their favorites, and Housewives will have a really good season, then a really bad season, then a good one. But I think it's okay to refresh and turn over and get completely new casts. And I think the benefit of completely recasting is that, yes, you don't have the familiarity that the fans that already watch this show have with these women, but getting to know a full new cast is a great thing for the audience. And it allows the casting to really work with the chemistry of the people. So they're not trying to like fit someone into a formula that's already on the air. Instead, they could say, well, hey, we're going to recast, we're going to do a full Orange County recast. And they could find a group of women that already fits together, or that they already do chemistry tests on, because that's what they would do for a new show, any new show that they're casting. If it's a brand new, not even Housewives, but something else, they would do chemistry tests with these people. And when the show's kind of already going and they're forced to fit in one or two new people, I think it doesn't benefit anyone. And I don't like that.
Yeah, because they're just filling a slot.
And it rarely works. Like Leah this season, I think really worked as an addition. but it's rare for someone to come on and just fit in so seamlessly.
Which shows do you think, like if you were running the network, which shows would you do a clean sweep and do a chemistry recast?
I would have done that with Orange County. Like, I know they got rid of Vicky and Tamra. At that point, I would have said, let's redo this. Let's see what we can get. Or maybe even just keeping one housewife and seeing her group of friends if she had a group, but Orange County would have been the one I would have, especially because it was the first one. To me, it would have made sense just from a standpoint of it'd be an easy advertisement. It'd be easy to say, well, they were our first franchise, so we just want to reboot them.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
And it could almost be proof positive, like setting a template that like it can happen. Like if eventually they do need to do something similar with New York.
And we would have seen, maybe it would have failed spectacularly. But I'm not super excited about what's to come in Orange County, but maybe I'll be proven wrong. Maybe it'll be great. But I think that would have been the time. The same thing with Vanderpump Rules. I think there was a moment before this past season that it would have made most sense to do a clean reboot or split the show off. And I just feel like that oftentimes on every network, they're afraid to take some of these chances. I think still they don't even know when they'll be able to shoot. I think the original plan was maybe like fall, October-ish, but still I don't know when those restaurants will open because she doesn't have a lot of outdoor seating. So like, I don't know when they'll be able to have a Sir restaurant open. And by that point, maybe Bravo will be like, you know what, we're done with it. Like at that point, fans have forgotten about it. But it was still really successful. So I think it'll be back. It'll just be a little while.
Yeah, until then, you can just keep watching Top Chef, Just Desserts, and
go back and watch.
Just go back and watch it. Go back and watch My So-Called Life. Like, there's a lot out there.
I know. I never watched the Top Chef. I was like not someone who's in that world, and now I'm fully on board addicted. Like we binged like 2 of the original seasons of Top Chef. Now we're doing the Just Desserts, and then we're gonna go back to the original.
Danny, I love you. This is
great.
Love you.
Thank you for having me.
So much fun. Tell everybody where they can find you, where to follow you.
Yeah, I'm on social media at Danny Pellegrino on Twitter and Instagram. My podcast is called Everything Iconic, and it's great.
It's great.
I shouldn't have said it was great. I mean, I do feel that way, but I feel like that was presumptuous of me to say it was great.
This is so great. You guys can follow me, JessXNYC, follow the show account, Hot Takes Deep Dives. And also, if there's some like old show that you guys loved, something formative for you when you were coming up or coming out or anything, just DM me. I'm genuinely curious I'm just curious to know what changed your life.
And I'm actually very curious too. I'm interrupting your outro. I'm curious like what it is like now for the youths. Like what are they watching that like
I know
is sort of sparking their sexuality in a weird way, like not in a creepy way, but like, what is making them think twice? Like we talked about so many things like Wild Things or Workout or whatever it was. And it's like, I wonder, what are these things that they're watching?
Tell us, please. We want to know. DM us.
Jess, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. This was great. Thanks, guys.